People, for quite some time now, there has been an extensive debate taking place on various social media platforms, an in-depth and extensive discussion on a timeless old new topic. Don't allow people to initiate and repeat the issue, as it will persist for as long as the underlying conflict continues. Standing between truth and falsehood, it is the subject of the call of Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, may God have mercy on him. May his resting place be honored. Before we begin with the intended meaning and occasion, we will provide a brief overview of the Sheikh. I hope that his call would be remembered by both the people and the preachers, and that it would resonate with a truly conscious ear. Sheikh, may God have mercy on him, in the year 1115 AH, corresponding to the year 1702 AD, in a small town located in Najd called Al-Uwayyana. He was raised in a knowledgeable and educational environment by his father, Abdul Wahhab, may Allah have mercy on him. Abdul Wahhab was a scholar and judge. His grandfather Suleiman was a jurist and a grand mufti. In this Sunni environment and amidst its educational atmosphere, the Sheikh began his amazing journey. He memorized the Holy Quran when he was less than 10 years old. He benefited from his father's knowledge and generosity. He was admired and deeply respected by him for memorizing numerous texts across various fields of sciences and arts. He developed a keen interest in the works of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, may God have mercy on them, at a young age. He went on a journey in search of knowledge, so he settled in the suburbs of Najd. Then he traveled to Mecca seeking to expand his knowledge. Then he traveled to Medina, then on to Iraq. He eventually settled in Basra and hoped to travel to Syria, but a lack of funds restrained him. During this extensive journey to various countries that lasted for nearly a decade, he gained a wealth of invaluable experiences and knowledge. Knowledge is based on many scholars. He is aided by his strong memory and his uniqueness in the whole. Then he returned to Al-Asa in the east of Saudi Arabia and met with the esteemed scholars there to discuss important matters. Then he decided to move to the town of Herimla, where his father Abdul Wahhab had previously relocated from. Al-Uwayyana, a notable location, was recognized in the year 1139 AH. There the Sheikh began his call. He devoted his time and energy to it. During that particular time period, various polytheistic beliefs and heretical phenomena had widely spread throughout the entire island, in a manner that nearly erased the defining characteristics of monotheism. And the scenes of paganism remain again. His son, Sheikh Abdullah, describes what was the reality during that specific time period. He explains briefly and in general terms, and before that he adds, in every region and town of Najd, there are numerous idols and ancient trees that are mistakenly worshipped instead of God himself. They make vows to them and sacrifice to them. They venerate them more than they venerate God. The graves of Zayd bin al-Khattab in Al-Jubayla and Al-Diriyah are notable sites. And another tree for the people of both sides, and a grave called the grave of the Moroccan. The Sheikh found the troubling manifestations concerning after the speech concluded. It made him feel a strong sense of responsibility before God. This motivated him to do so. He directed his attention and concern to his message. He began to witness, see, warn, and caution, but the important thing was, it was not easy, as she faced many consequences due to various reasons. Among these reasons were widespread ignorance of Islamic knowledge, deviations, and belief in polytheistic practices were common. The acceptance of heretical beliefs and children following their fathers' actions mirrors the stance of those who said when they are told, Allah is supreme, and they are urged to follow His revelations. They said, rather we will follow what we found our fathers doing, even if their fathers did not understand anything and were not guided. Among these reasons is what some opponents, numerous tweeters, and dissenters actively did, such as broadcasting slander and maliciously spreading false rumors aimed at distorting the image of the Sheikh and undermining his beliefs. And many individuals were prevented from accepting his call due to entrenched doctrinal reasons, political goals, or personal beliefs. Personal motives can lead to unexpected outcomes, and you will be truly amazed by the results. You find yourself utterly overwhelmed with amazement and disbelief when you see them exaggerating wildly in their outrageous lies and slander, an amount that morals and modesty refuse. They insulted him with the most offensive insults. They likened him to Musaylima the liar and attributed him to Dhu al-Khuwaisira. They described him as a blind man. They claimed that he claimed to be a prophet. They went too far in crossing the established limit until they provocatively claimed it was the devil's horn that appears in Najd. Then they left. They continued to fabricate. They claimed that he believes in anthropomorphism and likening the attributes to God. He denies the money of the saints from miracles. They claimed that he is from the heretical Khawarij and that he firmly disbelieves in all Muslims. They asserted that he contradicted the fundamental beliefs of the Sunnah. And what Ibn Taymiyyah decided in the Sunni creed, and they claimed that he had rebelled against the Ottoman state. He violated the Islamic rulings in this, and they even went so far as to accuse him of criticizing the messenger. May the best prayers and peace be abundantly upon him. They unjustly claimed that he was rude to his loving family. He strictly forbids people from praying for him, and he deeply wishes to completely destroy his dome. He described him as a speck in his grave. A person's stick is more beneficial to the person than the prophet, and that he has no form of intercession whatsoever, and other strange and silly nonsense as well. Shameful things. These slanderers were not enough. They spread lies and slander in their area. They corresponded with those far away from them and agreed to distort his image. We can only imagine the profound impact that this fierce and relentless campaign will have on people's lives and views. Despite facing tribulations and afflictions, the Sheikh remained steadfast, patient, and persevered. He would frequently say, especially upon hearing something from this sinful individual, "Glory be to Allah, this is nothing but slander." The opponents of the Sheikh, may God have mercy on him, seem to hope they've exaggerated their falsehoods. In the failure in what they believed in, they began to criticize him for ordering the demolition of graves, the graves that feature magnificent domes and impressive buildings. And he explicitly forbids traveling to it and seeking any blessings from it, emphasizing that such actions are not permitted. With tall trees, weathered stones, and various other things that echo and are often visited. And because it forbids seeking help from the dead, and because it divides monotheism into monotheism of lordship, and the unification of divinity and the unification of the names and attributes of Allah. They thought that this is from the Shaykh's faults, but indeed they were from his virtues. It was not something serious, and the same is usually the case with the preachers of monotheism from the prophets and messengers. And the sincere and honest scholars play a crucial role. This is God's way of testing, evaluating, and elevating the status of the prophets and the scholars. And thus we have made for every prophet an enemy from among the criminals. And sufficient is your Lord as a guide and a helper. The one who is guided by Allah is only a renewing caller. And he is truly a sincere scholar. We firmly believe that God Almighty has chosen him to revive the teachings of authentic Sunnah after negligence prevailed over the majority of Muslims. We regard him as someone to whom the noble Prophet's words, may God bless him and grant him peace, pertain. God does send to this nation at the beginning of every century someone who revive its religion. And the Sheikh, may God have mercy on him, upheld traditional beliefs. He adhered to the teachings of the Prophet and his companions, remaining true to Sunni creed. And he never once disobeyed his ruler or acted like Al-Khawarij. Once the people of Al-Qasim asked him about his faith. He said to them at the beginning of his answer, "I call upon God and the angels who are present to witness. I bear witness that I believe what the saved group believes, the people of the Sunnah and Jama'ah." Then he continued to carefully narrate the entire story until he finally reached the very end. The Sheikh's path, may God have mercy on him, in calling to God was full of hardship. However, he continued calling to God. In the town of Hurimillah, he endures for the sake of God what he encounters of harm. Some of the frustrated people even tried to forcefully attack him and climb over his house in anger. This occurred after his father passed away. He sadly died in the year 1153 AH, after which he eventually returned to his beloved hometown, Al-Uyayna, to continue his guidance and preaching, but he found there what he had found in Hurimillah before. The people even went so far as to forcibly expel him from the city. After that, he reluctantly left his beloved hometown, Al-Uyayna. May God have mercy on him. He traveled to Diriyah, where he had a significant meeting with its prince, Muhammad bin Saud. May Allah have mercy on them, who welcomed him and honored his resting place and allied to spread monotheism. A new era will commence after combating polytheism and deviation, marked by the victory of monotheism. In the year 1206 AH, which corresponds to the year 1792 AD, approximately 68 years after the significant call was launched from the historical city of Diriyah, Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, the one who called for the known term and the inevitable fate, passed away. He departed safely to his path. His students encouraged his disciples, persist in following his path, and worked for the majority of the island to unite as a single state, unified Sunni, strengthened by the blessings God has bestowed upon him, fostering a praiseworthy alliance with Imam Muhammad bin Saud. May God have mercy on them with the mercy of the righteous and place them in the highest rank of paradise. O people, what is currently happening around the Sheikh and his call on social media mirrors the events that were taking place in the past. It is a highly complex topic that cannot be adequately explained in such a brief amount of time available. But we will suffice with mentioning examples of it so that what is not mentioned may be measured by it. They claim that Sheikh boldly declares that all Muslims are infidels, and he excludes them from the circle of religion, and he does not rule with Islam except for his group, and whoever follows his path. They cite what Ibn Ganna mentioned in his comprehensive history of notable incidents. This particular claim stands as the greatest slander, the biggest lie. It was unjustly and aggressively thrown at the Sheikh. May God have mercy on him. The Sheikh, may God have mercy on him, faced false slander. Only an individual whose disbelief was clearly evident would be labeled as such, and scholars unanimously deemed him a disbeliever. The Sheikh did not label someone as an infidel for blasphemy if the person's circumstances were unclear to him. And may God have mercy on him, he showed who deserved to be excommunicated. This is what the scholars agreed upon without objection. He, may God have mercy on him, says, we do not call a person a disbeliever except a man who knew the truth and denied it after the prophetic proof was established against him. And he was summoned, but he did not accept, he refused and was stubborn. What is mentioned about us that we call people disbelievers without establishing the proof against them is simply a lie. The Sheikh's method of excommunication was expressed. The clearest report came to this conclusion, as confirmed by what his children and grandchildren specifically mentioned, and what is between him and his followers and students, and what he himself explained in many letters. He sent it to numerous esteemed scholars and dignitaries, both on the Arab island and abroad. He was eager to clarify this particular issue, and certainly to the very dregs of this ongoing chant. And after he had made that point clearer, it truly should not have been said by any man at all. Fairness is precious, and many people consider lying permissible and justified. And they also claim that the Sheikh, may God have mercy on his soul, he chose to rebel against the Ottoman Caliphate, an act that is not permitted by Islamic law. This claim appears to be nothing more than a politically motivated plot and a malicious policy that the claimants genuinely believe in, distracting people from the Sheikh and his call. The Sheikh believed that rebelling against rulers is forbidden and that obedience to them is essential. This is precisely the creed adhered to by the Sunnis. Here he elaborates on it clearly and plainly for better understanding. He says, may God have mercy on him. I see, hear, and willingly obey the leaders of the Muslims, both those who are righteous and those who are wicked. They did not encourage disobedience, so anyone who claimed the caliphate, gaining people's support and defeating rivals, was accepted. With his sword until he became a caliph, obedience to him was obligatory, and rebellion against him was forbidden. His words ended. But someone might say something about the battles in his time in Najd. Isn't that a rebelling? The question regarding the Ottoman Caliphate, the answer to this intriguing question or complex problem awaits. We refer to Sheikh Ibn Baz, may God have mercy on him and grant him a good resting place. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab did not rebel against the Caliphate. To the best of my knowledge and belief, he was not in opposition. In Najd, there was no presidency or emirate for the Turks. Rather, Najd was a small and dignified emirate, scattered. In every town or village, no matter how small, there is an independent prince. He also said that these emirates have wars, fighting, and quarrels. The Sheikh did not rebel against the state of the Ottoman Caliphate, but he went out against the corrupt conditions in his country and fought for the sake of God, the truth. His struggle, patience, and perseverance until the light of this call spread to other neighboring countries. So is the Sheikh rebelled against the Ottoman Caliphate? May God have mercy on him. Or those who accused him of that, those who deviated from the historical facts except for the ugliest injustice. They also assert that contemporary takfiri groups emerged from historical conflicts, the womb of the Salafi Sheikh's call, and they cite as evidence the statements and articles of some of his followers. The Sheikh has been misrepresented in these articles, and this is yet another slander added to other unfounded slanders that are primarily not based on a solid leg of evidence. Contemporary takfiri groups, known by their various names, they were born in the 60s of the last century in its own special circumstances. This resulted in its orientations. The concepts and theoretical terms associated with this topic are not present within the traditional Salafi doctrine. These sayings, for example, say that the origin and essence of divinity is power, and among them is that the Quran makes lordship synonymous with sovereignty and kingship. The defining characteristics of divinity are central to Islam. Are these specific terms recognized within the Salafi doctrine? These phrases, is sovereignty one of the known divisions of monotheism? Contemporary takfiri groups are based on the fact that sovereignty is the most special characteristic of divinity. According to their belief, Muslim rulers do not govern according to what was divinely revealed and often reject what is prescribed. They identify divine traits, declaring those who lacked them and their societies as infidels. They permitted bloodshed and expressed hostility towards Muslims, citing evidence related to some of the Sheikh's articles. The articles do not provide any evidence indicating that these groups emerged directly from the influence of his call, as evidence from the verses of the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet, which they misunderstood and thus made a mistake in their evidence. The Salafi Sheikh's doctrine disowns those from takfiri groups who claim affiliation with it. It differs from traditional forms in its unique origins and innovative approaches. In fact, there is no call on earth more severe on these takfiri groups than the Salafi call. O people, the call of the Sheikh, may God have mercy on him. Throughout history, people has shown hostility towards his call, just as countless people have expressed their hostility towards him. Some of them are relevant in the present time. However, it has also paved its way through history in the past. Despite all of that, its shining beacon has been carefully preserved in the present day, and it will remain, God willing, as long as remains the alteration of night and day, shining brightly in various countries. Not because it is the call of the Sheikh, may God have mercy on him, but because it is the authentic call of our beloved messenger and his companions. We honor the Sheikh with prayers and respect, but we do not claim he is infallible. There is no infallibility except for the prophets of God, but it is enough for him that he is one of the renewing scholars, those through whom God has preserved the religion, and all of them have taken guidance from the messenger of God, peace be upon him.